Dan Sports News here, bringing you the fourth episode of the Dan Sports News and Friends podcast. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at Dan Sports News, Instagram at I am Dan Sports News to catch all my latest updates and articles in sports. Today's guest is Emily Haydel, who is an in-game host for the Los Angeles Dodgers and UCLA basketball. Check it out. So, for everyone listening who doesn't know what you do, can you explain what it is that you do in sports media?
So I work part-time as an in-game host with the Los Angeles Dodgers, which includes when you come into the stadium, or if you go into any stadium, when you see the people that are up on the video board and they're like, "What's up, Dodger fans, welcome to Dodger Stadium. Today the Dodgers are playing blah, blah, blah." Like, it's the people that are, like, doing the games and the contests, doing the interviews on the field with, like, for first pitches. That's kind of what I do. I go out with sometimes if they need, like, a little reporter or somebody to interview on, like, a day, like, when the community relations team is doing something with, one of the players, like, I'll go out and, do a stand-up interview the players as well, or whoever's there. Also, before each game before each home game during the week, we have a Facebook Live show called Dodger Insider, where me and the Dodger Insider sit on Facebook Live and talk about what the team is doing, how they're doing right now. So that's what I do with the Dodgers. And then from that, I got another in-game host job with UCLA. First starting out with UCLA football, which was literally just doing stuff in the game, kind of what I do for the Dodgers, but, like, way less. And then that parlayed into doing hosting for UCLA women and men's basketball. And so that just wrapped up. So I have a bit of a break. And then when I'm not doing those two things, because LA, you have to have, like, 5 jobs.
Right.
I also work at a K-pop store. I love K-pop, and it was kind of like I needed a way to make money, but also learn more about the genre. So from that, I've also started hosting my own K-pop podcast. I have my own, like, YouTube channel dedicated to
Hello?
sports broadcasting right now.
All right. I think I lost you for a second, but could you just repeat the last things you said there?
So I also...
After K-pop?
Sorry?
After K-pop, you said, starting your channel.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah, I just, I am starting to try to push myself as a K-pop host, which means that I'm, like, I like sports hosting, but I realize that I like talking about music, interviewing musicians more than sports. So I'm very thankful for where I'm at right now, but I am, trying to segue out of it, I guess.
Okay. So, how did you, like, get started, though? What made you decide to pursue sports broadcasting when you were younger?
So I went to University of Michigan, and when I went there, I didn't quite know what I wanted to major in. I know I loved languages. I liked traveling, so I wanted to major and minor in a bunch of different languages, but realized I actually didn't want to do that. And then I also liked history, specifically, like, World War II, so I was like, I want to major in history, didn't want to do that. And then I was like, let me think about sports broadcasting, because I'd come up with, like, a sports background.
Right.
My family was very ingrained in sports, and so I ended up taking a few communications classes. I was a part of this, like, sports, like, TV show on school TV network called Sports Night. And from there, it was kind of like, okay, let me try to, actually make this a thing. So I then joined and became an employee. Like, you can, at Big Ten schools, there's a chapter at each school for the Big Ten network. It's like a student U. So I became one of the employees for the student U for the Michigan chapter for the Big Ten network. And then I started working as a recruiting volunteer with the Michigan football team, a part of Team Blue. And then I also started, what did I do? I began working with the following year, my sophomore year, began working as a student manager with the Michigan baseball team. So that ended up meaning like I was traveling with them, going to every single one of their games, that kind of thing, charting their pitches, everything like that. So that's how I kind of learned like the game of baseball more in depth. And then from there, this is all like school related stuff. I ended up, I was more involved with the school TV network, and then I created an all women sports talk show called Wolverine Women. And from there, was able to help create a relationship between the school TV network and the athletic department, because we did have student athletes on as guests on our shows. And then from that, I also, I guess that parlayed into becoming the sports director my senior year, and that just meant, I guess, getting credentials for different students who wanted credentials to different sporting events, whether it was March Madness or, a football game or a basketball game or a hockey game or whatever game it was. It was like I was kind of the main liaison between me and, like, outside entities and, like, just managing and, whatever's going on within the school TV network's sports department. And so in between all those things and trying to get involved as much as I can or could, I was fortunate enough to have internships in New York every summer. They didn't always involve sports, but my first summer was with MLB Network, and from there, my second summer was Fox News and CNN, and then it was Fox News, and then it was the Players Tribune and CNN, and then finally, once I graduated, I interned with the New York Mets, and then that parlayed into this Dodger job, or having this, job out here in LA.
All right, so with the Mets, you were doing in-game hosting also as well?
No, with the Mets, I was a production intern. I pretty much was, I was doing what I was doing. I was with the in-game hosts, but off camera. It was
okay.
I was cueing them to start talking. Right. I was making sure the contestants had everything they needed. I was making sure the camera knew where they were supposed to be, and it was pretty much like running around during the games and like making sure everything was set up, everything was needed. It was kind of like a stage man. It was like a stage manager. Field producer was the technical term. So that's what I did, but it was like an internship. But it lasted till the end of the season.
Okay. So I know you said that you work with the Dodgers as an in-game host. What do you think of their season, their last two seasons? As we know, losing back-to-back World Series. Do you think that they have a shot at it this year, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the Dodgers, obviously they're two extremely talented teams, especially, obviously that first World Series going there, and they were just like, you couldn't, I remember when I was working with the Mets, it was like, oh shoot, the Dodgers are coming, got swept, and it was just a great year for them, that first year, winning over 100 games, just kind of blowing through everybody. So the World Series was a surprise. Last year it was more of a surprise because it was so up and down for us,
right.
And we had so many injured players, and it was kind of a miracle that we even made it to the World Series. So that, I think that shows what the grit that the team has. Even though we did trade away a couple of guys, right. A lot of the guys are still here. So I think, I'm not like so much of a baseball expert where I want to start making predictions and things like that. But those last 2 years going back to back, 1 year was, it was like a smooth ride. This year or this past year wasn't. So I think it just kind of shows what the kind of grit and like this team has, and they know what it takes to get there. And third time's the charm. If that holds true, then you never know. But obviously, everyone in LA and everyone, except for the Angels, but everyone in LA, especially everyone who's a huge Dodger fan, would love for them to win.
Yeah. So I saw that you actually were able to speak with, was it Kevin Hart and Kourtney Kardashian actually at one of the games? Yeah. What was it like talking to them?
So it wasn't an interview that was supposed to happen. What happened was my co-host, Jay, he's a stand-up comedian, and he knows Kevin. And
Oh, okay.
so it just kind of made sense. Like they're like, oh, Kevin Hart, and I'd seen them earlier on in the day because they were filming something for Kevin Hart's new show, and they had a couple of Dodger players like Kenley and Matt Kemp doing stuff. And so they were like, oh, Jay's gonna interview Kevin. They know each other, so it makes sense. And so I was like, okay. And then so it was like him and Kevin, and then he was gonna throw it to me for me. He's like, all right, that's the pregame show. Let's go Dodgers, that kind of thing. And then they were like, oh, well, you know what? We should put in Kourtney. And they were like, oh, it's going to be awkward if it's just Jay interviewing Kourtney and Kevin. So we should have Emily on the other side just so it's not, weird or like, awkward. And so I was like, but they were like, Emily, you're not asking any questions because it's going to be tight. You're just going to throw it. You're going to be like, all right, thanks, Kevin, Kourtney. Let's go Dodgers. Right. And so standing there and I'm on the other side. I really don't get starstruck. There's only been like one time within the last 5 years where I've gotten like starstruck, and it was because I was
Right.
actually like very taken off guard. But this time I wasn't starstruck at all. But
Yeah.
towards the end of the interview, my co-host was like, so Emily, I hear that you're a huge Keeping Up with the Kardashians fan, and Kourtney's standing right next to me, and I was like, did he really just put me on the spot like that? And I kind of like looked at Kourtney and I looked at the camera. I was like, and I used to watch the Kardashians. But I stopped in the last 3 years, so I just didn't really know how to. I didn't want to seem rude and be like, I stopped watching, and I didn't want to also be like, oh my God, I'm the biggest fangirl. So I was just like, I don't know what to say, and I was at a genuine like loss for words because I just had no idea how to come out of that, and I was like, I'm starstruck. And like that's the only thing I could say. Because I was just like, I don't know what to tell this girl. I don't want to be rude. And then I kind of like fumbled around with my words. It was like the first time where I was like, sorry guys, I actually don't know what I'm saying. I couldn't even get myself out of that. So yeah. So basically, it wasn't much of it. And people were like, oh, you interviewed Kourtney. I was like, I didn't interview them. I didn't even ask them one question. And then after I was kind of like fumbling around with my words, Kevin was like, oh, so you're not a big fan of me? And I'm like, no, I like this stuff too. It was just, it was a funny mess.
Right.
And so I'll always remember that. But I would say that it wasn't necessarily an interview. They were both very nice afterwards. I was like, thank you for, dealing with my fumbling. No, thank you. No, it's okay. But it wasn't much of an interview. It was kind of just, it was just like me looking ridiculous.
Oh, very cool. Now, moving on to college basketball, because you do in-game hosting for UCLA. What are your thoughts on their season? I know they've had a really rough time. Obviously, we know they suffered the key injuries with Sharif O'Neal and Tiger Campbell, who were both like top high school players. What are your thoughts on UCLA men's hoops?
So honestly, I've only I do all the women's games. I've done I want to say around 4 or 5 of the men's home games. So I'm not there nearly as much as I am with the women's team. There are 2 other in-game hosts that also do the men's games, but I'm not there. So I quite honestly, when I go to UCLA, it's kind of like I understand how the state of the team's doing. I am not very involved with I'm not keeping up with the absolute details because my job doesn't require me to know those things. I definitely know the names of the key players. I know, that, the team might not be doing so hot this year, but I not like, I don't have thoughts on, the state of the team, I should say.
Right, because you mainly talk with the fans, right?
Yes, everything I do mostly involves the fans.
Right, all right.
At least with UCLA men's and women's basketball.
All right. So I do, because like I said, I've listened to the podcast. I know you mentioned that you are, was it the granddaughter of Hank Aaron?
Yes.
So, what was it like growing up as Hank Aaron's granddaughter?
It was pretty cool. There were definitely opportunities that I had that I'm very thankful for, and I probably would not have had if he were not my granddad. And I also, likewise on my father's side, my great grandmother is a famous chef in New Orleans that has had a lot of notoriety as well.
Yeah, I heard that story.
So having both of them, sorry.
Yeah, I heard that story also on the
Oh, you
podcast.
heard that?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna get
right,
to that later,
right.
but
So yeah, right. That was the only time I got stuck up. But having both of them within my family has given me a lot of opportunity to meet many people, and you know, kind of given me in some way, shape, or form, more connections than I wouldn't have had if I didn't have them as my family members, and that's something I'm extremely thankful for. And at the same time, though, oh my gosh, at the same time, it was something that, at least in Michigan, and even so a little bit now, but it's something where, if I do get these opportunities, like, hosting for the Dodgers or interning at certain places or just certain opportunities in any respect, one of the thoughts that always comes into my mind is, you know, should I be here? Like, am I good enough to be, hosting for the Dodgers? Or is it just because my granddad is, so and so? Or is
right,
it just, am I good enough to, do this because is it just because my great grandmother, talked to somebody? And so after a while, after having so many opportunities, and in some ways I feel like I've sort of like worked for it through my different endeavors, and maybe it's not that I'm the most talented at it, but I definitely am always trying to be better and get better and move on and move along with my career. So if anything, I think that that's something that I continue to have. But I think one of the things that maybe uh, might be the only negative thing is that I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh, am I good enough for this, or is it just because so and so is my relatives? But either way, for the most part, like 95% of the time, they're, aside from the fact that they are public figures, and I get to meet people like the president. I've met like a number of the presidents, and gotten to know different public figures that are aside along with them. I definitely would say that just having them as I know a lot of people who have like public figures as relatives, and sometimes they aren't as
right,
present in their lives, and they have a lot of things to juggle. But my grandfather and my great grandmother, they have been the most loving, supportive, and giving grandparent and great grandparents, and also my grandmother also in her own right, who's married to my grandfather. She's kind of a public figure in herself, and she started out as a TV host, Billy Aaron, and in Georgia, the first like black TV host in Georgia, and so, or co-host, I should say. So she kind of gave me some sort of inspiration. My mother almost went down that path as well to host as well on TV. So I think, but on both sides, my entire family, that's one of the things I'm like so thankful for. And I wouldn't be able to do anything I'm doing right now, or think and dream and want to do K-pop, because that's totally out of like left field for them. But all of them, even they know about K-pop, and they don't quite understand what it is, but they are, they're very supportive. They're giving, they're loving, they're willing to, be open to whatever I want to do with my life, and or to make myself happy. So I think that's the number one thing I'm very thankful for.
right. Well, I know that I'm sure like many of the people who are related to someone famous always have like second guess themselves on things like that. Like Steph Curry, always like people thinking about, is he going to be better than his dad Dell and stuff like that. Also with Michael Jordan's kids, and they didn't really turn out that great in basketball. But just explain. So your grandmother is Leah Chase. Explain what she did. Um, well, your great grandmother. Explain what she did with the civil rights movement with the restaurant.
Mm. Yeah. So Leah Chase, she's my great grandmother, so my dad's grandmother. She basically she married my late great grandfather, Edgar Chase, or Grandy as I call him, and basically his family had a restaurant. And when she married into his family, she kind of took over and became like the head sort of chef, and she made the restaurant into this nice place where during the civil rights movement in New Orleans, if you were black, you couldn't go to a nice restaurant. You had to go either in the back kitchen of, a regular restaurant that was just for whites, or you'd have to go to kind of a beaten down restaurant. And so over the years, my great grandmother started collecting art, black art specifically, that is now worth a lot of money. And it's not just it's worth a lot of money. It's just very by very famous black artists. And so it kind of became a way, like it's kind of like a small mini African American art museum. With the restaurant started to have white tablecloths and these kinds of things. So it was just a nice establishment where black people could come and convene and just talk, or they could even come and discuss topics related to the civil rights movement. So people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, Lionel Richie, many public figures as well have come through the Dookie Chase restaurant in New Orleans, because at one time it was the only place for us blacks, or we blacks, to go and have a conversation or a nice dinner. So that's kind of what it was. You get your standard jambalaya, gumbo, fried chicken, collard greens, that kind of thing. Good, like Cajun, Creole, Southern food. But yeah, that's what she's done. She's been the pillar of, I guess a safe space, if you will, in New Orleans for people to, I guess, then be able to come and talk about whatever they wanted to and do whatever they wanted to, because they knew it was an okay space to do so. But it was also nice, which that didn't exist outside of her restaurant. So that's what she's done with the civil rights movement, and through there, she's through that though, and being also a very nice person to everybody she meets. Everyone she meets, doesn't matter if she knew them or may know someone related to them, she's always very kind and warm to them, and I think that shows. And one of the cool things that I like to say when people ask me about her is that so she's had President Bush and President Obama come through her restaurant. She served them before. She always talks about how President Obama almost put hot sauce in her gumbo, and she slapped his hand and was like, "Don't put hot sauce in my gumbo." Like, got a little mad at him. I was like, no one can get mad at him except for you. That would only make sense.
Right.
But yeah, the other cool thing is that the character Princess Tiana, the Disney character, was inspired by her. And so the movie Princess and the Frog, it's like so that's like my family's favorite Disney movie to see, because it's like, oh, we know it's inspired by my great grandmother, and so, or the character at least, Tiana is, and it's like a nice little New Orleans like reminder.
Right.
So yeah, so I think she's done a lot. She's obviously from the 60s to now. She's still moving, and she just turned 96. 96? She turned 90. Hold on. Sorry, my brain is I think she turned 96. No, she just turned 96. Yep.
Wow.
So she's still old. She's older, but she's still in the restaurant every day. She works very, very, very hard too.
Wow, that's incredible. I guess next time I'm out in New Orleans, I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yes, please go, and then tell make sure if you see my aunt, she's always there. Tell her I sent you.
Yes, I will, for sure. Now, can you just give a quick rundown on the Jay-Z and Beyonce story?
Yeah, so that's, like I said, that's the only time I've ever really been starstruck. And to the point where I was like, my heart is beating out of my chest. So basically, I was at the restaurant. I had just gone off a flight from Atlanta, and I was spending a week in New Orleans, just hanging out with my family. And I was sitting in, if you walk into the restaurant, it's like a big, grand, room. It's like a burgundy walls, and that's where most of the tables are. And then when you walk in towards the back, there's like a separate room where there's like a piano, and you can eat there too, but normally there's private parties there. And then to the left, there's like a gold room. And the gold room is like, if you close the doors, it's completely closed off. And that's normally that's where, if a public figure does end up coming, that's where we put them, because you can close the doors quickly and you can't really see. So normally when a public figure does come, they'll call in advance and, say, we're coming, can you reserve a table for us? And we'll put them in the gold room. But this time, for some reason, Beyonce and Jay-Z and Solange didn't call. They just kind of walked in. And so, but I was sitting inside the gold room doing like homework on my, or not homework, just like applying to jobs and stuff on my laptop. And my great grandmother was being interviewed by this, I guess she was in high school. This girl was doing a project on my great grandmother. So she was, you know, she was interviewing her, and her parents were sitting right there. They'd been sitting there for like an hour. So for an hour or so, we were all kind of just sitting in that room. And then, maybe around like, I think it was like 1 p.m. when they came in. At one point, like my aunt walks into the room and she's like, "Excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt the interview, but you have a guest that's here to see you." My great grandmother and I are like, "Why'd you just stop the interview? What the heck?" And then she's like, "It's an important." She was like, "We talked about it earlier this morning." And we were like, "Who are you talking about?" And then right after that, Solange like walks in. I'm like, "Oh, cool! Wow, I've seen Solange before. She's come to actually some of the Mardi Gras parades." That's another thing I left out. My grandmother's normally like the last stop of the Zulu parade for Mardi Gras, which is on Fat Tuesday. So she's always like, people are always giving her a toast before the parade ends. So my Solange has come to that party once before, but basically Solange walks in. And I was like, "Oh, I've seen her before. I've seen her at Essence as well." And then right after that, Beyonce walks in, and then Jay-Z walks in, and I'm just like, what? What? And I like look up from my laptop and I'm like, wait, hold on. I didn't think I was, I was very at a loss. Again, I didn't say anything. I didn't have a chance to really, like at that moment say anything. So my heart started beating really quickly. Beyonce kind of like, I feel like she gave me this side look like, "Girl, calm down." And I was like, okay, sorry. I wasn't like freaking out like that. I was just kind of like, whoa, oh my God. And so she's talking to my great grandmother, and she's like, "Oh, hey." My great grandmother had been in some of Beyonce's music videos, from Lemonade, and so they'd met before. And so I was just like, "Oh my God, she's standing right here." And so then they go and sit down, and it's like Beyonce, Solange, and Jay-Z, and they're just chilling with her like assistants, and they're talking very quietly. And so then once my grandmother finishes the interview, my great grandmother finishes the interview with the girl in high school, she gets up and she goes to start talking to them, and they're talking, and then she's like, "Oh, this is my grandmother. She just graduated from Michigan," and her and Jay-Z were like, "Oh, congratulations." And I was like, "Oh," I wanted to say, because the drum line at Michigan, if you listen to it, it's the same drum line as "Lose My Breath," and I was like, people said that she plagiarized it, but I wanted to like ask her, but I didn't want to ask her. I didn't. But so anyway, so then I took a picture of them together, and which my hands were shaking to take. But then after that, my great grandmother leaves the room, and I was sitting there, and also I had my phone out, not for them, but it was just out on Snapchat, and like their security came and was like, "Turn it off," and I was like, "I didn't put it out for them. Sorry, okay." And so I just turned it off anyway. But I was already in the room during work, so like it would be one thing if I came in after the fact, but I didn't. I was just like already on my laptop doing work, so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stay. So I stayed, and I was still doing work on my laptop. But as you can imagine, I'm texting my friends like, "Holy shit! Like Beyonce and Jay-Z are here! Like I'm freaking out!" And Solange too, and they're like I don't know. So I'm on my laptop doing stuff, and I stay there for about like an hour, and I'm like, should I stay in here or not? And I, they're just having a conversation. It wasn't anything crazy. But yeah, so it was like their private time, and by the time they left, and I kind of felt bad, but by the time they left, there were people waiting outside because someone had told them, like had tweeted out that they were there. So there were people waiting outside to see them, so they had to leave to the back, but they were very nice. They were very gracious, and they were really cool, very chill, low key. And I always like to say, I was like, "Oh, Jay-Z said congrats on graduating," and I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, whatever." Either way, he was very nice, and they were both very cool, as well as Solange. They weren't like Hollywood, and they weren't like, "Oh my God, give me this." They were just chilling.
Right. So, back to Hank Aaron. In my opinion, I think he's the greatest baseball player of all time. I think in the episode with Giancarlo Stanton, you guys kind of talked a little bit about when Barry Bonds broke his record. What was your thoughts on that when that happened?
I was young, so I didn't quite understand what was really going on. You know, my granddad likes to say, records are meant to be broken.
Right.
And I am not out here to create any sort of animosity at all. I definitely, he holds the record, as they have it right now in the books. And, I'm just happy that, my granddad was able to also, because a lot of people could be salty about that, but he, created a video message saying congratulations, he's happy for him. And it's also another thing, it's like another black man that's breaking, his record. It would be,
Exactly.
and it's
right.
not like, it's like, oh, if it were a white man, it would be something different, but it's the fact that it's another black man, so it's like, all right, it's obviously it would be great to still, hold that record on his part, but, yeah, that's kind of, my opinion on it. But I think props to him for breaking it is what I have to say.
Right. I do know. I read somewhere. I think it was when Hank Aaron had broken Babe Ruth's record first. People were upset because he was a black man and he broke his record. But then Babe Ruth's wife said, no, it's fine. Babe would have been happy for him and would respect him and all that.
Right. Exactly.
So I know it's good as long as there's respect. That's the main point.
Exactly.
So now, switching over to the K-pop. I don't really listen to K-pop or BTS. I do have some friends who listen to them. I think I only heard one song, but explain what it is that you do with that. And was it the Nickelodeon Awards? What happened there?
So I got into K-pop early of 2018, so I'm very late to the game. But it was through BTS. They kind of opened my eyes to a lot of different things, and so they are, my fave, group or whatever. But at first it was just me. When I got into BTS, I was like, I can't just be a fan. I have to find out a way to be more involved with, whatever it is. And so I created my own little fan base, fan account, YouTube channel where I would go and interview different fans about what they're doing, whether it was waiting for hours to see them at LAX, Ellen, James Corden, the BBMAs, whatever it was. I was always out interviewing them, getting their opinion on things. So that's what I did. Or I still do it, but kind of parlay when they're not here. I'm normally interviewing different fans virtually. They talk to me, I've interviewed a YouTuber that kind of breaks down the theories that are in BTS's music videos. I've interviewed different, fans that have podcasts that, I've hosted, I guess, 2 parties that are involved with, in bringing fans together and, having raffles and, hosted a panel as well where different fans, we talked about what their place is like within the fandom. I also have interviewed a couple of fans in regards to black fans and what it's like to be a K-pop fan and a black fan. So I have my own I guess fan base account that's dedicated to interviewing different fans and giving them a voice. And then there's I'm a part of a group that is responsible for throwing these different events here in LA. We're currently planning a lot of different events that we have going on. So that's what I do within the BTS realm. And basically the 2 award shows, it was Radio Disney Music Awards and Teen Choice Awards. I had the fortune of being able to randomly be able to speak on stage. So the Radio Disney Music Awards, they gave the BTS Army fandom award for fiercest fandom, and they needed someone to talk and accepting the award. And I was like, let it be me. And so they let it be me, and I said what I had to say, thanks for blah blah blah, and that was that. And then the second time, Teen Choice, it was we won an award. We kind of knew we were going to win, but it was we didn't know if we were going to be able to speak. So we got up on stage, and it was I was if the mic is brought anywhere near me, I am saying something. So Nick and Lele Pons were who wants to say something, blah blah blah, and I was they were oh my god, I love BTS, and Nick Cannon was can someone say something other than I love BTS? And I was okay, and he brought the mic over to me, and I didn't know, I hadn't planned what I was going to say I had for Radio Disney, so it was kind of just spur of the moment, and I was whatever love and thanks to BTS in Korean, and so that's what I said. So those are kind of random, but yeah. So that's what I do with like BTS stuff, kind of. In July, I started working at this K-pop store here in LA called Choice Music. It's probably like the most popular K-pop store in LA. And I started working there. It really, I needed money, but also I needed to learn more about the genre, more than just knowing about BTS. So, and having working there, I know way more than I once did about the genre, which I'm very happy about. But so now I realized, I went on a trip to Korea, Japan, and Asia, or like Dubai, in November, and that kind of coming back from that solidified that I knew that my passion and what I wanted to, like I said, we talked about, I do hosting for sports, but I would love, to do the same, in music, but specifically with a focus on K-pop. Being able to interview the different K-pop acts that come through town, that would be just like a dream. As of right now, that's like my next, goal, to kind of cross through in my career. So yeah, that's kind of what I do right now. So I currently host a podcast called Believe in K-pop. That is, interviewing different fans about their perspectives and kind of getting the fans' voice more than anything. And then I have yeah, that's pretty much what I have. So that's kind of what I have going on.
All right, very cool. So before we wrap it up, just let all the listeners know where they can follow you on all social media and where they can listen to both of your podcasts.
Okay, so my Instagram is Emily Haydel, so it's EMIHAYDEL. That's on Instagram and Twitter. You can listen to both of the podcasts. Believe in K-pop, it's BLEAV, so it's not BELIEV. So it's Believe in K-pop. It's on the Believe Podcast Network. And you can listen to that on iTunes. You can listen to it on Stitcher. You can listen to it on the TuneIn app, or you can go to to Believe.com and you can listen to it there. And then I also have the Ball Out with ENK, which is you heard the podcast regarding, Giancarlo Stanton and that Beyonce incident. So that is also on, that's on iTunes, and it's also, or the podcast app, and it's also on SoundCloud. So you can listen to that there. That's just a podcast with me and my best friend, Kyra. We talk about everything under the sun. So it's not just K-pop. It's not just sports. It's like a mix of a bunch of things in our personal lives as well. So that's where you can listen to those two things. And, yeah.